The standard for most people in this culture, at least, is to, is home ownership. And that means, at least in terms of houses, like most average houses that exist, like, you're spending, at least in this area, like $200,000, $300,000 on a mortgage on a pretty large house. House sizes have like continued to increase over the past couple decades. And even though that's kind of the standard, like people don't utilize the majority of the space in their house, right? Like we have these big houses, we fill them with all sorts of things, like objects, right? Like unclear how much value and happiness we actually derive from those things, right? So like, okay, like I'm like spending like this massive amount of money in this giant house of which I inhabit like a very small percentage. And I'm depending upon my level of happiness at my job, maybe I'm chained to a job that I don't really like, but kind of need to do it because I have this giant house. But a tiny house, at least, it's like, you own the house outright. It's a small amount of space. Some people would argue too small, but for me, it's like, it's just totally functional. Like this is the amount of space that I need. So we have these giant houses. I mean, there's a certain amount of construction materials that go into that process. Requires a certain amount of energy to keep the house heated and cooled and all these things. And obviously, we've been growing in awareness the past couple of years about, we actually have like a finite amount of resources on this planet, and like, so let's try to use them more efficiently and find alternative means. And so a lot of people build for that reason. They want to sort of like tread a bit more lightly on the earth. I mean, some downsides people might say is, okay, like you have less storage space. Like, I have like a closet and I have like built-in storage and a sofa over here. So, I have bookshelves. So I don't have a lot of room for stuff. But for me, that's like a blessing. That's like, I don't need to have all the stuff that I don't really, need in my life anyway. But for some people that would be an issue. So in this area, like, cost of living, cost of housing is quite high. And so if you can get it to work, like this is you build a house for $30,000 and pay a couple $100 in rent, right? As opposed to like a $300,000 mortgage or like, $1,500 or $2,000 in rent, in the city. So just from that perspective, it's just like, yeah, man, sign me up for that. Neighbors have been fine with it. Neighbors over here, I like had a conversation with her a couple of weeks ago, and she's like, "Oh, your house is so beautiful. Like, you could stay here for as long as you want." So it's been fine. I think because like the house was built well, like and built with like nice materials and looks attractive from the outside. I think people are more willing to be like, "Oh, yeah, that's fine." The design of the kitchen is actually one of the things I like the most about the house. So in a lot of tiny houses, you'll see kitchen layouts which are sort of split, sort of like a galley kitchen situation. I like just sort of having one open wall just sort of taken up by the kitchen space because it creates sort of a lot of openness in front of it. I don't need a giant oven with 4 burners and a stove. Like that's just more than I need. Like I need 2 burners and that's all. And so there it is. The sofa here, this is sort of like it's like a built-in sofa. Has storage underneath. Like a lot of the plumbing is underneath here as well. And there's a 40-gallon water tank which sits under there too. And so actually this whole winter I've basically been running off of that tank. I have a water pump down there. And so that just kind of pressurizes the water for the sink and for the shower. This is the bathroom. The house itself is quite tiny. The bathroom is even tinier. But I managed to fit a shower stall in there, which works out well. I have a tank water heater in here, just like a 4-gallon tank. Enough for like a 5 or 6 minute shower, which is pretty much all I need. And then people really seem to like this incinerating toilet because it's an incinerating toilet, which is awesome, I guess. This setup is like a more efficient use of space. So the bed just kind of rolls out basically. So I just kind of pull it out at night, and then you can lock the wheels and it just kind of sits in place. And then during the day it just kind of slides away, and then that frees up more living space. I'm living here the past 3 or 4 months, and it's more space than I need, honestly. Like, yeah, it's more than I need. I don't know. There's even space, and like I'm never in this area of the house. I usually don't do anything. It's like, yeah, it's totally no sweat.